Jason Walker stood at the edge of the alien village, holding a crate of medical supplies. His boots crunched softly against the silver-blue dirt. The twin moons above were slowly rising, painting the sky in soft lavender light. He had been sent to this remote planet Zelari Prime for a peaceful mission. Just drop the supplies, shake hands, and head back. But the gate behind him slammed shut with a loud clang. Jason spun around. The alien guard stall figures in gold armor had closed. The gates. One turned the lock with a heavy clank. The sound echoed through the quiet village. Jason's heart started to beat faster. This wasn't part of the mission. "Excuse me," he said, raising a hand. "I'm just the delivery guy." No one answered. From the main hall, a group of elders walked forward in perfect formation. They wore flowing robes covered in glowing symbols. The center figure, an older alien woman with silver skin and white eyes, lifted a carved staff. She spoke in a calm, commanding voice. "The moons are full. The time has come. The humans shall fulfill the rite of the twin bond." Jason blinked. "The what?" More villagers gathered, forming a circle around him. Their eyes were focused on him, some curious, others excited. A few looked afraid. Jason felt like an animal in a cage. "I think there's a mistake," he said, stepping back. "I'm not supposed to be part of any ritual," the elder continued. "According to the old law, when the moons align, the chosen human must bond with two sacred females, 5 times each under the full moon's light. You have been chosen." Jason laughed nervously. Wait, bond? You mean mating? With who?" The crowd parted. 2 alien females were pushed forward. Both looked young, barely adults. One had glowing green markings along her cheeks and violet hair tied back in braids. She looked terrified. The other, taller and with silver-blue skin, kept her face low, refusing to make eye contact. She looked angry, like she had been forced. "Here, this is Lyra and Sari," the elder said. "The sacred twins." Jason's stomach dropped. He looked at the girls, and back at the elder. "This is crazy," he said. "You can't force people to do something like this." "Is older than our civilization," the elder replied. "It must be followed." Jason took a step toward the girls. Are you okay?" he asked softly. Lyra shook her head. Her eyes were full of fear. "I don't want this," she whispered. Jason's jaw tightened. "You're forcing them to?" Guards moved closer, weapons glowing. "Refusing the law means exile," the elder said coldly. "For all 3 of you." Jason backed away, his breath quickening. His communicator was dead, no signal. His ship wasn't where he had left it. He realized they had planned this from the start. Sari finally looked up, her voice shaking. "They said if we don't obey, our families will be punished." Jason looked around. The villagers weren't celebrating. Most looked ashamed. Some even turned their faces away. This wasn't a festival, it was a sentence. "No," Jason said, his voice firm. "I didn't agree to this. I don't want to hurt anyone." The elder's eyes glowed faintly. "The moons have risen. You're already part of the bond. Law doesn't need your consent, only your body." The crowd began chanting softly. The moons rose higher. Strange energy filled the air, static and electric. Jason's skin tingled. His hands trembled. Then, without warning, strange light burst from the sky and wrapped around Jason, Lyra, and Sari. The villagers gasped and stepped back. Jason couldn't move. The girls were frozen beside him, glowing symbols appearing across their arms and necks. "What's happening?" Jason shouted. The elder looked surprised. This is not normal." Jason could barely breathe. Something ancient was being awakened, something none of them understood. The law wasn't just about bonding, it was about unlocking something. Buried inside them, the light faded, and they fell to the ground. Jason gasped, catching his breath. Lyra was shaking. Sari stared at her hands, symbols still glowing faintly. Jason stood up slowly, his voice low. "You didn't just choose me, you triggered something." The elder took a step back. The crowd was silent. Jason looked at the moons above. Whatever was coming next, it wouldn't be normal land. He wasn't just a human anymore. Lyra's hands were still glowing when she backed into the wall of her stone room. The symbols on her skin pulsed, slowly like they were alive. Her breathing was fast, shallow, and her wide violet eyes refused to blink. Sari stood across from her, arms crossed tightly over her chest, the same glowing marks crawling up her neck. But unlike Lyra, her face wasn't afraid, it was full of rage. "I told them I wouldn't do this," she growled. "I told them I'd fight." "You tried to run," Lyra whispered. "I did," Sari answered, voice cold. "They caught me. At the outer fence. They said if I don't go through with the bond, they'll take my younger sister instead." Lyra sank to the floor. "My family's the same. They said my mother would be removed from the healing center. She's too sick to survive outside the city." From the corner, Jason spoke for the first time since they were brought into the chamber. He had been quiet, watching, listening, trying to understand the madness around him. He finally stepped forward, holding up his hands. "You both didn't want this either?" he said gently. Sari's eyes locked onto his. "No, we didn't, and neither did you." Jason nodded. "They tricked all of us." The heavy stone door slammed shut behind him. There was no guard posted this time, only a faint green shimmer sealing the door. Some kind of energy lock. Jason stared at the strange marking still glowing on his wrist. They knew what this ritual really was. That flash of light. It wasn't just for show. Sari walked over and grabbed his hand. Her fingers were ice. Cold, that symbol. "It's not part of our old rituals. I've studied them. This is something new, something buried." Lyra looked up, hugging her knees. "My grandmother told me stories about the first humans who visited Zellery Prime. She said they brought chaos. And power?" Jason frowned. "That was hundreds of years ago. Earth didn't even have records of human contact here."
Sari looked down.
"Because your government's buried it, our elders worship it." Jason shook his head slowly. "So they think I'm some key, that this ritual is the lock?" There was a strange humming outside the room now. Not footsteps. Something deeper, mechanical, steady, pulsing. The walls of the chamber glowed faintly with the same symbols as their skin. "They're activating the cycle," Lyra said quietly. 5 times a day, the law demands it." Jason stared at her. "They really expect this to happen?" Laughed bitterly. "They don't care what we feel, as long as the cycle completes." Jason paced the room. "This isn't just about reproduction. No species needs that kind of ritual. This is about energy, control. We're awakening something ancient." Suddenly, a hidden panel in the wall clicked open. A shimmering orb floated in glowing faint blue. It hovered in the air between them and projected a hologram, grainy, old, but clearly human. A man in an old Earth's military uniform appeared, face weathered, eyes serious. "To those who find this message," the recording said, "you have activated the binding cycle. The old alliance between humans and the Zellerians was sealed by blood and spirit. This ritual was designed to protect, not enslave. But if it has been corrupted, I'm sorry." Jason's heart stopped. The message wasn't alien, it was human. "This device contains genetic fail-safes," the man continued. "If the bonding is done with force, the energy will backfire. The subjects may mutate, or worse." The orb flickered, then went dark. Silence fell across the room. Jason looked at the girls. This was never meant to be forced. Lyra's voice was soft. "They don't care. They only see the law." Sari's eyes flashed. "Then we break the law." Jason nodded slowly. "If we fake the bond, just enough to fool them, we might survive long enough to escape." Sari frowned. "That could work." "But if they test us for energy levels, then we give them energy," Jason said. "But not through the ritual. We create another kind of link." Lyra looked unsure. "How?" Jason stepped forward. "Trust. Unity, not ritual." The symbols on their skin pulsed brighter, as if they heard his words. For the first time, Lyra gave a small nod. Sari didn't smile, but she didn't argue either. Outside the chamber, the humming stopped. Footsteps heavy. They were coming. Jason took a deep breath. No matter what happens next, we stay together. We don't follow their rules. We make our own. The door glowed, then began to slide open. Lyra stood. Sari moved beside her. Jason stepped forward, shoulders squared. The bond hadn't been formed yet, but something deeper had. And that the elders never expected. The air was too still. Jason stood in the middle of the stone circle, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest. Around him, the alien crowd sat in silence, their faces masked behind ceremonial veils. The glowing trees cast dancing shadows over the sacred ground. Smoke rose from deep bowls of herbs, and strange music played low from crystal chimes hanging in the air. The full twin moons hovered above. But something was wrong. "They're not the right color," Sari whispered. Lyra looked up, eyes wide. "They're turning red." And they were not slowly, but all at once. Both moons glowed with a bright blood-red hue that cast an eerie light over the entire village. The ground itself seemed to hum with low, unnatural vibrations. Jason narrowed his eyes. "That's not how they looked last night." A priestess stepped forward, her face painted with silver lines. She raised a tall staff and shouted in the ancient tongue. The crowd responded with a single loud word. Jason couldn't understand it, but Lyra translated quietly. "They just called you ... the key." Sari's hands curled into fists. They weren't supposed to say that yet. Jason turned to her. "What do you mean?" Sari looked toward the elders. "There's an old prophecy in our sacred texts. It speaks of a human who would return during a red twin moon and change the fate of the planet forever," Lyra added, "but most believed it was just a myth. A story to scare children." Jason's voice was tight. "Well, I'm here now. And the moons are red. So what happens next?" The priestess struck her staff into the ground. Energy surged across the stone platform. Jason, Sari, and Lyra all froze in place. Their glowing skin symbols pulsed brighter than ever, connecting. Like threads of light between them, Jason tried to move, but his muscles wouldn't respond. He wasn't paralyzed. It felt more like being held in place by invisible hands. Suddenly, the sky shimmered, and above them a massive floating symbol appeared, made of pure light. It was the same symbol burned into Jason's wrist. The villagers gasped. Then something even stranger happened. The symbol broke apart, and the pieces began moving, slowly at first, then faster. The broken pieces formed a map, a pattern that hovered above Jason's head. He had no idea what it meant, but the elders did. They were afraid. The elder from before stepped backward and dropped her staff. "This was never supposed to happen," she whispered. Another priest stepped forward. "He is not completing the bond yet. The symbols activate." Jason forced himself to speak. "I told you, I didn't agree to this." Lyra shouted over the hum of energy. "It's resisting the law, but the ritual still works." One of the guards raised a weapon. "Then he's a threat." Jason's body moved on instinct. His hand rose and, the energy flowing around him, jumped from the ground into the air like lightning. The guard flew backward, crashing into a stone wall and dropping unconscious. The crowd screamed. Jason looked at his hands in shock. "I didn't mean to do that," he whispered. "Sorry." Ran to his side. "That wasn't you." That was the bond pushing back. The light threads between them grew brighter, now linking heart to heart. Lyra grabbed his other arm. "Jason, the ritual was never about mating. It was about transformation. It changes the human, the females, and the planet itself." Jason's voice shook. "Then why lie about it?" Sari answered coldly. "Because if the truth was known, no one would agree to it." The red moons grew larger in the sky. The energy circle rose higher, surrounding the three of them in a glowing dome. The villagers could no longer see inside. Jason, Lyra, and Sari were alone within the light. Then the real change began. Jason felt heat inside his chest, not pain power. Vision sharpened, his skin toughened, and his heart beat like a machine. Sari dropped to her knees, breathing heavily. I can hear everything in the crowd, the trees, even the stars. Lyra gasped. Jason, your eyes, they're glowing silver. He touched his face. His senses were sharper than ever. He could feel every heartbeat in the circle, every breath, every drop of energy in the air. Then a voice, not from outside, but from within, echoed inside all three of their minds. The bond has begun. But the true test is coming. Jason turned toward the dome wall. What test? But the voice didn't answer. Outside the energy shield, the elders were panicking. They hadn't expected this reaction. The ancient law they relied on was waking something far older than their traditions. Jason looked at the girls. They were glowing too. Not just with symbols, but with power. Lyra whispered. They didn't want a savior. They wanted a weapon. I ain't sorry. Stood tall. Then they created the wrong kind. Jason nodded, eyes locked on the red moons above. This ritual isn't ending tonight, he said. It's just beginning. Jason gripped the edge of the stone altar, and it cracked beneath his hands. He stared at it, confused. His fingers hadn't pushed hard, but the stone split like dry wood. Dust floated up, and even the crowd outside the energy dome gasped. Lyra stepped back, her eyes wide. That wasn't normal. Sari narrowed her eyes. Wasn't stone-breaking strength. That was pressure from inside, too much power trying to get out. Jason looked down at his hands. His skin shimmered faintly, and the glowing symbol on his wrist now pulsed like a living heartbeat. Something inside him had changed. It was still changing. The light dome around them started fading, but no one moved. The villagers stayed frozen. The priests didn't speak. The guards held their weapons lower now, no longer so sure of their control. Jason stepped forward. The crowd parted in silence. He didn't mean to be scary, yet they were. Scared anyway? What did you do to me? He asked the elder woman, his voice calm but heavier than before. You forced me into this. Now tell me what you've awakened. The elder's lips trembled. You carry the ancient spark. We thought it was only legend. Jason frowned. Explain it. Lowered her eyes. The spark is the lost power. Of the first humans who came here, their bond with our people created balance, peace, and energy for the world. But only one human in 1,000 years could carry it. You weren't supposed to exist. Jason looked back at Lyra and Sari. And what about them? The elder hesitated. The bond completes when the sacred females evolve with the human. That's why the law demands repetition. The energy grows through connection. Lyra's voice cut in. You mean through forced mating? The elder flinched. It was never meant to be cruel. But over time, the ritual was twisted. Into control? Sari stepped forward. So you used it, like over and over, to keep your power alive. Jason's hands tightened. The air around him sparked. Even the torches near the temple flickered and bent toward him. You didn't just trap us, he said. You've been doing this to others. The elder didn't deny it. Jason looked up at the red moons. What happens now? The ground beneath him pulsed once, then again. Lyra stumbled. Sari grabbed her arm. Jason remained. Still, a deep vibration was rising from the earth, like a heartbeat. But not his. It's the planet, Lyra said softly. It feels the spark, Sari whispered. The world is responding to him. Jason closed his eyes. Then he saw it flashes behind his eyelids. Ancient ruins buried under forests. Hidden. Machines pulsing under mountains. Forgotten temples locked by symbols matching his wrist. This wasn't just about bonding with two alien females. This was about activating something long lost. Something buried beneath time. Jason opened his eyes. They didn't choose me by accident, he said. The planet did. Suddenly a guard lunged from the shadows. He aimed a glowing spear toward Jason's chest, shouting, "He's too dangerous." Jason didn't flinch. The spear stopped inches from his body, frozen in midair. Everyone stared. Jason looked at it, then gently waved his hand. The spear snapped in half. The guard fell to his knees, eyes wide in fear. He dropped the broken handle and crawled backward. Jason turned to Sari and Lyra. We're not prisoners anymore. Sari smiled for the first time. No, we're the ones they should fear. A loud horn echoed across the village. More guards ran in from every direction. High Council was done waiting. They'd seen enough. Jason grabbed the girl's hands. We need to go. Lyra hesitated. Where? Jason answered without thinking. To the place in my vision. A place with answers. The ground cracked behind them. From the center of the ritual platform, a staircase opened downward made of glowing stone. Sari stared at it. That wasn't there before. Jason squeezed her hand. It is now. Without looking back, he led them down into the earth. The priests shouted. The guards followed, but the staircase sealed itself behind the three of them with a blast of light. Darkness swallowed the space below, then soft blue fire lit the walls. Symbols danced across the stone, moving as they walked. Lyra touched one and gasped. Jason, these are human-made. Sari traced another. They're not just human, they're his. Jason looked ahead. The tunnel grew warmer, deeper. A power hummed through the walls, like it knew him. He had come to deliver medicine now. He was unlocking the lost history of an entire world, and he wasn't sure if he could stop it, even if he wanted to. Lyra screamed, not from fear, but from something deep inside her body that refused to stop burning. She dropped to her knees as light spread across her skin like glowing veins. Her back arched, her breath came in sharp gasps. Jason rushed to her side. What's happening? I don't know, she whispered. Ow. It feels like something is pushing through me. Sari stood frozen, her hand trembling as she reached for her sister. But then she jerked back. Her own arm began glowing with moving lines, twisting like they had a mind of their own. Jason stared at both of them. This is from the ritual, isn't it? No, Sari hissed. This is something else. This is transformation. The tunnel around them pulsed with blue energy. The deeper they went, the more the ancient symbols moved alive and watching. This place wasn't just stone, it was awake. Lyra cried out again. This time not from pain but from release. Her spine cracked. Not an injury, but an expansion. A pair of soft feathered wings burst from her back, small at first, then spreading. Wide with glistening silver feathers, Jason fell back, stunned. She looked up slowly, her face glowing in the firelight. Her eyes were no longer violet, they were shining white. Sari gasped. She's ascending. Jason helped Lyra stand. She was trembling but not weak, her feet barely touched the ground. She looked ethereal, almost no longer of this world. Sari clutched her chest, breathing hard. It's happening to me too. Jason turned just in time to see her collapse to one knee. Energy swirled around her like a storm. The glowing markings on her arms moved upward, wrapping around her head. Her skin shifted from deep blue to pearl-like silver. A sound filled the tunnel, a song without voice, like ancient echoes remembering their shape. Then she looked up, her eyes glowing golden, not white. Jason's voice was barely a whisper. You both. You're changing into something new. Lyra nodded slowly. The bond didn't stop. With you it's flowing through us. Sari stood now, steadier. This was never just a mating law. This was evolution. Jason looked at his hands. They still carried power, but compared to them now, he felt incomplete. The spark started in me, he said quietly, but it awakened something inside both of you too. Suddenly a tremor shook the floor beneath them. The dust fell from the stone ceiling. The council, Lyra said, they must be trying to break through the sealed passage. Jason looked ahead. Need to reach the core before they do. The glowing tunnel led them forward, deeper into the forgotten foundation of the world. As they moved, the walls shifted to reveal carvings, images of humans and aliens side by side, not in war, but in union, connected by light. Sari stared at the carvings. These were the original bondmates. Jason stopped. They weren't just chosen, they were partners. Lyra's wings folded behind her back as she reached for a central pillar at the end of the corridor. Her hand touched its hand. The entire chamber bloomed with color. Dozens of glowing pods filled the room, floating gently like stars in space. Inside them were figures, some alien, some human-looking, but all asleep. Their bodies pulsed faintly. With energy, Jason stepped closer to one pod. These aren't statues. They're alive. Lyra looked around, awed. They were the first bond-bearers. Sari pointed to a symbol above the pods. This was a sanctuary, not a prison. They placed themselves in stasis to preserve the bloodline. Jason stared at them. And the law was meant to protect this, not abuse it. Suddenly, an alarm echoed from far above, sharp, loud, urgent. Sari's eyes narrowed. They're getting through. We don't have much time. Jason looked between the girls. You're both different now, stronger. Can you fight? Spread her wings. I don't know how to fight, but I can fly. Sari closed her eyes, and I can sense movement. Even through stone. Jason smiled, and we might have a chance. But as they turned to leave, one of the sleeping pods cracked. Everyone froze. The pod slid open, and a figure stepped out. It was human, a woman tall, ancient in presence but youthful in form, her eyes glowing like the moon itself. Looked at Jason, then at the twins. You've awakened the cycle, she said. Jason stepped forward. Who are you? She smiled faintly. I'm the first. The air around them shifted, and the war above was no longer the greatest threat. The moment the first opened her eyes, the room grew colder. Jason could feel it, not fear, but pressure. The kind that made bones ache and breath tighten. Lyra stepped back, her wings trembling. Sari stood firm, but her hand hovered near Jason's arm, ready to pull him away. The first woman looked calm. Calm? You were not meant to come this far, she said. Jason held her gaze. We didn't choose this. Your people did. I do not serve the council. Above. I slept through centuries waiting for the spark to return. And now here you are, incomplete. Jason frowned. What do you mean? She walked forward slowly. You carry the power of the old blood, but the bond hasn't finished. Without the final cycle, your energy is unstable. Sari stepped in front of Jason. He's strong enough. You've seen it. The first raised her hand, and Sari was lifted off the ground without a touch. No, Jason shouted, reaching for her. But the ground beneath him erupted. Chains made of living stone burst from the floor and wrapped around his arms and legs. He was slammed to the ground, unable to move. The stone chains pulsed with red light, burning into his skin like fire. Jason gritted his teeth. Let her go. Misunderstand the first, said softly. I'm not your enemy. I'm your test. The chains pulled tighter. Jason felt his strength slipping. The air around him thickened. The glowing mark on his wrist dimmed, flickering like a dying flame. Sari struggled in the air. Lyra tried to fly toward her, but the first waved again. Lyra was forced back by a blast of wind. You must break yourself, the first whispered. Only then can you be rebuilt. Jason's vision blurred. Pain roared through his chest. His heartbeat was slowing. Somewhere deep inside, another rhythm was rising. A voice echoed inside him. Not human, not alien, but familiar. You are not chosen. You choose. Jason's eyes snapped open. The chains cracked, the stone around. His wrists exploded outward. Jason stood. The air around him shimmered like heat over fire. His body glowed brighter than before. His eyes burned silver, and when he spoke, his voice echoed like thunder. No more tests. He raised his hand and the ground split. Not a crack, but a canyon. The chains around his ankles shattered. First stepped back, her calm expression finally broken by surprise. Jason turned to Sari and reached out. She dropped into his arms. Safe. He set her down gently, then looked at the first. You're powerful, he said. But I'm not here to be tested. I'm here to free them. The first stared at him. Then prove it. Jason didn't answer with words. He moved. In a flash of light, he closed the distance between them. His hand touched her chest stand. Instead of striking her down, he pushed energy into her. The first gasped. Light burst through her body like a wave of stars. Then, she smiled. You've passed, she whispered, and vanished into light. Silence filled the chamber. The glowing pods dimmed. Jason stood still, glowing like a living flame. Lyra and Sari rushed to his side. "Jason," Lyra said, eyes wide. "Your body, it's changing again." Jason looked at his hands. The symbols on his skin weren't pulsing now. They were steady, calm, like they had finally accepted him. "I don't feel like I'm breaking anymore," he said quietly. "I feel complete." Suddenly the stone wall to the sanctuary shattered. The alien council burst through with weapons ready. "Seize them," the High Elder shouted. "They've broken the law. Kill the human, if you must." The guards charged forward. Jason didn't move. But the moment the first guard stepped into the room, he stopped, then dropped his weapon, then knelt behind him. More guards followed, each one entering with rage. "Only to freeze and bow," Lyra whispered. "They feel it. The spark. It's commanding them." The High Elder trembled. "No, it's not possible." Jason walked toward them. "You forced me to follow your law," he said. "The new one." He raised his hand. The sky above cracked with thunder. Outside, the red moons began to fade into silver. A new cycle was beginning, and this time it belonged to him. The sky was silver. Not just the moons, but the stars, the wind, even the clouds, drifting across the high mountains. Everything shimmered, as if the world itself had been washed clean. Jason stood at the center of the great circle where it all began. The stones were still scorched from the energy of his awakening. The villagers no longer chanted. The guards had lowered their weapons. The council had stepped back not in defeat, but in silence, because he was no longer just human. And the two who stood beside him, Lyra, with her wings folded gently across her back, and Sari, whose golden eyes saw beyond flesh and time, were no longer just chosen females. They were something more, something born through fire, resistance, and trust. The final moon had risen, but no elder stood to shout orders. No staff slammed the ground. No chains waited in the shadows this time. No one forced the ritual. Jason turned to Lyra, her fingers brushed his. Then to Sari, she took his other hand, and together, they stepped forward. The old altar cracked, not from power, but because something, buried beneath it, awakened. The ground shifted, and a circle of light opened. From it, 3 beams rose, one from each of their feet, twisting upward and merging above them. It wasn't light from this world. It was memory, legacy, soul, every villager dropped to their knees. They weren't watching a ritual. They were witnessing a rebirth. Jason looked into Lyra's glowing white eyes. "You could fly away from all this. Why stay?" She smiled. "Because I found someone worth flying beside." He turned to Sari. "You could disappear into the stars. You've always been stronger than anyone here." Sari stepped closer. "Awowa, but no one ever made me feel safe until you did." Jason looked up at the twin moons. "Then I choose you. Both of you." The air responded. A pulse spread out from them, soft, warm, invisible, but powerful. The trees swayed. The clouds moved in time. The planet accepted the union, not as a law, but as a gift. Suddenly, the ancient temple behind them began to glow. Not the surface, but deep below, in the roots of its foundation. The energy spread across the village like a spiderweb of silver light, and the first appeared again, not in flesh, but in spirit. Floating gently above the altar ruins, she looked, younger now, peaceful, complete. "You have done what none before you could," she said, her voice like music. "You changed the law not by breaking it, but by showing its truth." Jason stepped forward. "Then let this be the final cycle. No more chains, no more lies." The first nodded. "So be it. From this day forward, no bond shall be taken, only chosen." She turned her gaze to the villagers. "And those who choose shall not just survive, but become." With those last words, her spirit faded into the sky. The moons slowly returned to white. Jason exhaled. For the first time since he arrived on Zelari Prime, felt light. Not powerful, not forced, just free. Lyra leaned her head against his shoulder. "So, what now?" Sorry smiled faintly. You know the law says 5 times a day. Jason laughed, shaking his head. I think we've rewritten that rule. The villagers approached slowly, first one, then a few more ran, till the entire crowd stood around them, not bowing, not worshipping, just accepting. One of the guards stepped forward. He removed his helmet and placed it at Jason's feet. You gave us our freedom back, he said. We will follow your new law. Jason looked at the broken chains still lying in the dust. No more law, he said, only choice. And under the last full moon they chose each other, not because they were told to, but because they wanted to.